This is Shadowkeep Collector's Edition, Entry 1, but also the little note from Eris. Friend, I have flushed our quarry from its hide. This will not be like Crota. This time we are prepared. We face our nightmares reborn. But you and I have killed nightmares before. Our true enemy left something buried here to watch and to whisper. I have gathered these clues, the logs of a doomed Golden Age expedition. They had no idea what they had found. Their encryption will be no match for your ghost. Learn what you can swiftly. The Hive too are fascinated by this power, and whatever fascinates the Hive means death. Discover what they plan, and we will silence their prayers forever. That sounded like the old Eris, didn't it? The things that hurt us return again and again, but we do not face them alone. Clarity in action. K1 Commander's personal log. So this is going to be the Golden Age Expedition, K1 Commander. And personal log. CDR, I'm sure that's an abbreviation for some military. Is that just Commander? CDR, I'm going to say this wrong too. Shan, I think it's a Shan. Quang Shan. Entry 1. Expect nothing and you'll be prepared for anything. That was a lesson my master taught me over and over. In simulators at Sukebayo. She was a third stage Anagami monk of the Tibetan Vibhajavada Theravada school, a new and unorthodox present in Tibet, but one with ancient Indian and Sri Lankan roots. If they need anything but air and meditation, they do not admit it. Why did she teach me so well then? If she needed nothing from anyone, I used to wonder why she tormented me so. I graduated second in my class, but first I came closer to failing out there anyone in my cohort. I think it delighted her to unsettle me. Here I was, young Quang Shan, fresh from the House of Wisdom and not even 60, charged with so many facts and figured and contingencies that my fingertips tingled. I thought I knew everything, and she was very good at proving me wrong. I still rub at the joints of my fingers where the hard switches in the simulators used to strip my skin. Rub at the joints of my fingers where the hard switches used to strip my skin. My aunt caught me doing it before New Year's Eve dinner, and thinking I had a rash, banned me from doing dishes. The House of Wisdom, my master would tell me, excels at mathematics and logic. Islam gave us algebra, and even our digits are Arabic. This is why the Shura certified commanders are the finest pilots in the solar system. But 0 belongs to the Buddhists. This is why you must expect nothing. Quang Shan. I think I've said that different every time. Quang. We'll keep going. And so be prepared for anything. The most vital skill of a Sadi certified commander is at the inner nothingness, like the quantum vacuum, empty and yet saturated with possibility. Entry 2 from the Shadowkeep Collector's Edition. We found it. Let me zoom in for you guys. We found it. EM triangulation led us to a lava tube beneath Site 3. When the drill broke through... Site 3, okay. When the drill broke through, it destroyed a rock formation, which I regret. But a morsel of geologist is nothing compared to the article itself. Ooh, the article itself, which I regret. But, Tanis was right. It can't be described without diminishing it. A black sphere, nothing could be simpler, and yet it was awesome. Unspeakably complex and compactly infinite, full of as many things as it could possibly contain. We cannot spend long near it. Its electromagnetic flux is too subtle to burn through the weave in our suits or cause any real harm, but we can't assume it will stay that way. If the field spikes, it could force our nerves to fire, even drive us into seizure. High Tesla magnetic fields do strange things to the mind. Our priority is to shield the article, then we can begin study. If Dr. Yarn's physicists are right, the EM emissions are just a side effect of the object's true purpose. Entry 3. Where does it come from? The surrounding rock is flood basalt, rich in potassium, phosphorus, and rare earth elements. It could be as old as the original impactor which blasted the moon free of the earth. Or it could be as young as the ocean of storms. Either way, it means the article arrived before the traveler. Okay. Is there a connection? Could it be a beacon that led the traveler here? If I had my way, we would encode the question in topological thoughts and broadcast it to the traveler, but that would mean going public, and the terms of our agreement with Clovis Bray deemed secrecy. Clovis Bray, they're always involved. Do we have an ethical duty to break that agreement? If we discovered a clue to the traveler's origins, certainly yes. Clovis Bray was buried its war against the Vex under a sarcophagus of secrecy and existential compromising information has it they could do it again here. Nowhere outside the retro-nationalism of the North American Empire does any private organization have such sweeping, selfish authority over knowledge which should belong to the whole human commons, and at least the Twin Eagles are a voluntary society, answerable to higher law. Clovis Bray reeks of the old unregulated capitalism. I think that's a typo, but I will not be the first to break trust. I will not start the cycle of defecation. I must keep my mind empty and so prepared, but I have not found Tara in many nights of meditation. O Tara, 21 formed Tara, led me out of pride and ignorance, out of hatred and jealousy, out of phantasm and miserliness, and desire and delusion. Entry 4 from the Shadowkeep Collector's Edition, the Golden Age Expedition. Tanis thinks the article is a transceiver. She says this is the only way to explain how such outstanding complexity and power could emerge from something so simple. The article does not generate its emissions eternally. It is attuned to a distant source. She thinks that source may be the traveler's home. If so, this cannot be kept secret. It would be an atrocity to deny this information to the human noosphere. It would be a mass starvation of the mind, a betrayal of all the new thoughts and discoveries this little sphere could trigger. But my training says that the scale of the stakes does not alter the correctness of principle. I cannot be the first to violate trust. I have not meditated. Very busy. Om ta tu mama ayapuna guanaputin kura suha. White Tara, seven-eyed Tara, grant me a long and ethical life, increase my wisdom, but please do it quickly. Okay, entry 5. Many reports of insomnia. I've ordered the crew to open their sensorium telemetry for Dr. Bow's analysis. Entry 6. Dr. Bow's report confirms my fears. The insomnia is worsening. Some of the crew with histories of successful anti-trauma are now expressing PTSD from vivid re-traumatizing nightmares. Bow suggests crew rotations, limiting exposure to 30 minutes in one shift, which is wise from his perspective and utterly impossible from mine. If this truly is the greatest discovery since the Traveller itself, then our lives and health mean nothing. It is the strange quirk of human psychophysics that we are willing to take risks to avoid loss, sacrificing ourselves to stop a fire or save a damaged ship, but afraid to embrace danger in the pursuit of gains, even when those gains could contribute 1,000,000 times more to the common welfare. I've set shift limits at 2 hours. When we return to Earth, I will request Dr. Bow's relief. If Clover Spray discovers the anomaly, the anomaly has negative effects, they will use the experience with the Vex to assert that they are the undeniable authority on safe interaction with the radically alien. We must lean as much as we can before Clover Spray locks down access. That must be a typo. We must learn. I will have to risk some psychological crew attrition. I must mediate, find some time, somehow to say the 21 Taras. Not now. Entry 7. Yarn and Loftus are making progress on the distant source that communicates with the article. Ooh, that's interesting. This distant source communicating. Yarn, Loftus, another 2 characters. Their modes describe the signal as a ripple moving through a 6-dimensional manifold present at every point in our familiar 4-dimensional space-time. I almost understand it, but I am too much of a creature of motion to attach to the space I know. I almost wish they would make less progress, then I could afford to go easy on them, but it is clear that a majority component of their work is intuitive and driven by proximity to the artifact. I have been pushing their exposure limits because I fear, that is the honest word, Clover Spray will seize the site soon, or perhaps they have already seized it. If Firewall is compromised, everything we do here goes straight to them, and as long as Clover Spray knows exactly what we know, they'll know how to censor and sequester our findings. We must take precautions. What if this object is hostile, even malevolent? Entry number 8 from the Shadowkeep Collector's Edition book. This is the lore entries from Shadowkeep. The Collector's Edition thingy-majig. It relates to the Revelation book. Okay, maybe we'll get to that one next. Entry 8. Back from Earth, time away gave me perspective. Sadi analysis requires us to detach ourselves from narrow contingencies so that we can remember the unconditional truth, how to act correctly in the great human context, not in the narrow particularities of a situation. I was right to dismiss Dr. Bow and to dismiss an approach based on fear. I must open myself to the possibilities of the K1 artifact. Oh, this is why it's K1 on the moon. I've only just put that together. Those lost sectors to K1. Oh, damn. Okay. Possibilities of the K1 artifact. Is it any surprise that it causes nightmares? The human mind evolved to suit a narrow set of circumstances. When we are driven outside of those circumstances, we experience fear, anxiety, even terror. Of course, the article terrifies us. Of course, we have nightmares. How else could we process such alien contact, so far outside our evolved preconceptions? The traveler speaks to us indirectly because it knows it must protect us from that terror. When we shed that terror and consider the universe without any human expectations or any attachment to our temporal identities, what do we find? A pattern of selflessness, a pattern of good. The traveler brought us so much and asked nothing in return. The Vex are not malevolent, merely amoral, unable to understand or care when they do harm. We cannot allow our evolutionary legacy of tribalism and fear to cloud our third chance at contact. We cannot come at this with closed fists. It would be a terrible error to treat the article as hostile merely because it is dangerous and uncomfortable. I cannot allow my crew to suffer, but one way to relive suffering is to understand and transcend it. We must trust in that flash of intuition. I will mediate tonight if I can finish with all the reports. I hail Tara, who undoes the plots of foes and so forth. Must go. Entry 9 from the Shadowkeep Collector's Edition. Must speak with Henson about what I saw. Dark Visitor. Tara. Okay, a bunch of prayer pretty much. Tara whom gods and titans heed. You may dispel any terrors that come in dark hours. You are proof against chaos. Your beauty has power. I am not afraid. We're now on entry 10. Almost halfway of the Shadowkeep Collector's Edition. Oh, great. Not a couple of short entries. Just sleep paralysis. A byproduct of overwork. Henson is more pragmatic than Bo, and perhaps more naive. Sadi analysis. Am I rationalizing a significant and dangerous event because the local context has blinded me? Unsure. I'll find time to mediate on it. Entry 11 from the Shadowkeep Collector's Edition. Jan and Loftus believe they can replicate the articles. Oh, it does call it articles. Wait, so they switch between article and artifact? This is the same thing though. Yeah, I thought that almost sounded like the chant from Eris Morn does as well. Yeah, interesting. Replicate the articles. Calibi Yao transceiver capabilities in a machine they've started to build. Ooh. The redundancies appeals to me. Clovis Bray would privatize the Traveller if they could, and a second connection let us continue our work once they move against us. Entry 12 from the Shadowkeep Collector's Edition. Alton Bray. Of all our instruments, I thought they'll deploy for the first strike. All the machines and maneuvers at their hold on, let me restart. Alton Bray. Of all the instruments I thought they'd deploy for their first strike, all the machines and maneuvers at their disposal, they chose an ordinary man. Even his implants were unremarkable. He rebuked me for my secrecy. I told him that the secrecy of the project was the very reason I'd cut him out. He said it was not part of our agreement, as if that agreement hadn't introduced the virus of secrecy in the first place. So I showed him what we'd done with all our secrets. I showed him the thing we'd build. We'd build. The thing that Clovis Bray would now never be able to keep for itself. Today we won, but they will respond soon. Entry 13 from the Shadowkeep Collector's Edition. Okay. Clovis Bray stole it. This must be typed by the Mito Seward. I'm going to have to check what that actually says in the original. This has been transcribed, so sometimes there's a couple of errors in here. The Mito Seward, Alton, twisted the site to antenna into proof that we no longer need the article itself. He asked me why we want to keep suffering under its influence, risking unknown notic effects and massive psychological attrition. He insists on pathologizing the experience of contact, as if every difficult discipline, from Buddhism to contract bridge, doesn't suffer attrition in its learners. His corporation has designed a gruesomely over-engineered containment system to hold the article. It poses more of a danger to us than the artifact ever did. Yet we have no choice but to install it. Then the whole containment system and its suspension will be hauled from the dig to a permanent Clovis Bray laboratory nearby. Was it a mistake to show Alton the Site 2 transceiver? I gave him the truth and he used it against me. What if they come after Site 2 now? What if they insist that it must be contained in a dodecahedron of Clovis Bray's armored secrecy? My thoughts have become snarled and septic. No more pre-verification. I must recenter myself. Entry 14 from Shadowkeep Collector's Edition. I saw the dark visitor as I meditated. This time, I understood its purpose. It comes from within me. It is the messenger of doubt. This petty territorial struggle with Clovis Bray. At a time when we should be united in purpose and method, at a time when so much of humanity's future could depend on what we do here, has changed me. Either I never grasped my master's lesson, or they are not enough. Perhaps the truly enlightened do escape reincarnation and pass into transcendence. But what about those left behind? How will they achieve enlightenment? If all the enlightened have left the world in the hands of the selfish, the stupid, the short-sighted. Evil is not only the act of evil, it is also the creation of circumstances which permit and promote evil. Must be which permit and promote evil. Some concession to pragmatism must be made. Some preferences must be expressed for the innocent over the malicious. How can I cooperate with Clovis Bray when the corporation allows them to exploit and privatize our vital work? Who knows what secrets they hold that the whole human race deserves to share? If I carry this logic to the extreme, I begin to doubt my faith in the intrinsic goodness of the universe. Cooperation and collaboration are the best strategies in the iterated prisoner's dilemma, but only until someone defects. Then it is better to proceed by the principle of retaliation. Entry 15. Clovis Bray. Containment system is in place. The ferrofluid surface erupts into spikes when it self-tests, like something inside is trying to pierce its way out. In time, perhaps decades, perhaps millennia, the object's strange magnetic flux will burn through even Clovis Bray's incomprehensible outer armor. I will never work with that hellish material again if it degenerates. It would blast a new crater into the moon. But there was something awesome about positioning a simple plate of metal with the same engines we use to move asteroids. The canary systems in the Clovis Bray cladding have revealed something strange. We experience hallucinations, insomnia, trauma, and powerful intuitive breakthroughs when we are near the article. Yet the canaries, the cells, organisms, and simulated copies of our brains in the cladding are happy and healthy. Why are they untouched? Why, while we are haunted? If there's some spooky effect at work, a violation of closure, why can't the Zeta arrays detect it? I think of a lesson from the House of Wisdom. We can never find God in our instruments because God is all powerful. Taking hold of our devices and displays to hide from us the knowledge of God's passing. This is the limit of science. It can find any truth in the world, but it cannot cut away the veil cast over our eyes. Entry 16. I asked my mater if the enlightened save the foolish at cost to themselves, won't there soon be only fools remaining? She told me that the question was foolish because it viewed the work of enlightenment as something expressed in costs and benefits. She reminded me that the enlightened linger in the world to aid others in their enlightenment. These are the bodhisattvas, which are so beloved to Mahayana Buddhists. She warned me against the path of selfish Shavaka. They're making it tough, aren't they? Who seeks enlightenment only out of fear and need. But I fear the fearful. I need to protect the future from the needy and selfish. If there were no one left alive, there would be no one to seek enlightenment. How can she sanctify the top of the mountain when we all begin down in the mud at its base? When there are those who would prefer to keep us in the mud and stand upon our backs. Number 17. We got this one up to 23, and then we have finished the Shadowkeep Collector's Edition lore entries. As in mother. Okay, thank you, Nancy. Lost my mouth. Come on, my mouse keeps crashing. You can do it. Article 17 from the Shadowkeep Collector's Edition. The article is gone. Holy bejesus. We have shifted our work completely to Site 2. I think Clovis Bray has made a mistake, and their efforts to isolate themselves from the artifact will also cut them off from any progress. This is how we will beat them. By confronting the alien truth of the object directly, we will achieve the powerful intuitive understanding that Clovis Bray's instrumental approach cannot attain. Yarn and Loftus are certain that the Site 2 antenna receives exactly the same transmission as the original alien artifact. But we still have no idea how this stubbornly four-dimensional object access the sex. I think that meant to be 6. The sex extra the sex extra dimensions of the Calibi-Yar manifold. Our antenna, like the artifact, simply shuffle its internal state through an apparently arbitrary series of gravitational and electronuclear permutations. These unified force events were probably common in the early universe, but they have no real significance now. Yarn theorizes that they are like a password recognized by some strange networks that exist in the Calibi-Yar manifold. Do I need to code this? The Calibi... What is that? Yar manifold? What if the traveler came to us because of this artifact's summons? What if we are now in direct contact with the mother of travelers, the source of the light? I've retained firewall to monitor and limit exposure to the artifact. We must proceed by the principle of calculated risk. 10. We are settling into a routine of exposure and rest. This has yielded several insights, which the science team insists on referring to as excursions. Ooh, this is like exo-traveler stuff. An interesting proof that life arises to maximize the system's energy capture. A mathematical framework for reconciling separate systems of causality. A sonata and accompanying dance arrangements. A recipe for synthetic... something. A list of stars, significance unknown. Exact solutions to a number of difficult mathematical problems, including 11 perfect cuboid. Words are hard. A novel grand unified theory with certain apparently unnecessary equations which we're working to understand. This is only the beginning. Once Clover Spray understands how valuable our methods have become, they will try to infiltrate the team. I've prepared contingencies, isolation, and rigorous discipline. We will be our watchwords. Hey, entry 19 from Shadowkeep Collector's Edition. Success cannot make us complacent. I've intensified our safety protocol for antenna exposure. In addition to the weekly and random physicals, we'll snapshot everyone's vitals from their internal safekeep when they enter and exit the chamber. In the beginning, we listen to the antenna's signal as audio, but this is ultimately an arbitrary transformation. There are so many ways we could choose to render the mathematics of the signal into a form humans can sense. As the theory of international two-way contact has taken hold among the scientists, many of them have elected to try the rich immersion approach, offering the antenna many sensory modalities for its choice of how to communicate. Audio, direct-to-cortex hallucinatory video, subdermal haptic feedback, and ambient EM exposure are popular. In more extreme examples, scientists have wired their interoceptive and kinesthetic faculties into the loop. There have been experiments with protocols to alter gene regulation under the signal's influence. I've forbidden direct neural input, which is an unacceptable no-tick risk, as well as a recipe for seizure disorders. But my belief we must embrace all channels of communication remains firm. Entry 20 from the Shadowkeep Collector's Edition. Instead of meditating last night, I retook my final Sati assessments from Suik Bayo. I faced the whole array of modern ethical rigor. Spinal flash decisions, test to failure moral clarity escalations, Coruscant conflicts between global deontology and local exigency. And I couldn't make the same choices. I placed my own crew before strangers, the innocent before the guilty, the enlightened few over the greedy many. I failed the exam. I would disappoint my masters terribly if she could feel disappointment, but I do not disappoint myself. There are fierce aspects to the Buddhas. My school never taught them, but I know of Maya Ha Kala and Paladin Lamo, and the others who go out and destroy the obstacles to enlightenment. Now I wonder whether I should have prayed to them instead of Tara. Entry 22. It is lonely. It is impossible. Inexpressibly sad beyond the capacity of human limbic system to experience, but it is content in its loneliness and its beautiful sadness. It is a light of the first sunrise after your love leave forever. It is the acceptance before death. Transcendence lies not in the denial of attachments and limitations, but in the complete understanding of our confinement and the tautological tyranny of existence. The final stage of Buddhism cannot be attained. There is no escape from samsara, for it has closed as a lock. Heaven is invaded and its territories are afire, and all its mountains have been shattered into thrones. This is the inevitable and perfect shape of the truth. It is magnificent, majestic. Entry 23 from the Shadowkeep Collector's Edition. When I remove myself from the moment and consider our behavior, our cultist isolation and secrecy, our fixation upon the antenna as a source of meaning and purpose in our lives, I see an expedition compromised by the notic effects of an alien object. Why do I not abort the investigation and return to Earth? Because the most powerful notic influence in the universe, the true coin that all deception and deceit must counterfeit, is the truth. Everything we have been granted here is true. That is why we behave as if we are compromised by an alien influence. Revelation is the most powerful influence of all. There is no veil over our eyes. We see clearly now. I have almost realized the next step of my journey. When you have nothing, you are capable of everything. Would they tell the world? Would the truth align with their interests?